Yo, yo, it's your boy Spongerelli and Big Faro in the building, coming at you with a post national championship college football
And then
season is
there was one.
officially over. It's
It's
done
over.
data.
Yep.
Um,
It was
the
a great season.
college football 12 team playoff finalized last night, obviously with the Buckeyes winning the national title over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Yeah, it's all over. It's a good season, like you said. It's fun. The playoff was
Fun.
fun. It was,
Yeah.
a lot of some extra football. Definitely, obviously, everybody's talked about things they need to change and what they would like to do differently. So we'll see what they do. I don't know if much is going to change, in 1 year. So, but for the most part, um, we both thought the team who was going to win would win, and that was Ohio State. They took care of business last night. There was a point in time in the game where it looked like it could be a runaway, like we kind of thought it could be. And give credit to Notre Dame; they fought back and at least made it a 4-quarter game where it was at least you had to tune in to stay with it instead of just being like, well, let's play the video game. It wasn't that, but
Yeah.
credit to both teams. Like I say, at least it was a decent national title to watch for the most part. But there was a point where you're like, man, yeah, this thing's going to get away quick.
Yeah.
And then I think for the most part, Ohio State put it on cruise control and kind of
Yep.
let Notre Dame sneak back in to make it a little interesting there because we sat there and we're like, it was looking like they were going to score potentially. So you're like, okay, if they score here and get a 2-point conversion, they could get the ball back. Could this
Yeah.
be a collapse?
Ohio State. Yeah. Ohio State did go a little conservative in that third quarter. And because it was what was it, 31-7 for a
Yeah.
period of time, I think, with seven and some change left in the third quarter.
Yep.
And they just went super conservative. I know people are criticizing Marcus Freeman today about the fake punt, the field goal, and all of that. But, the one I criticize is the fake punt. As they were running on and off the field, I was like, this is going to be a fake right here. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, guess what? It should have worked because the kid has to catch the ball. If he catches the ball, you extend the drive. I'm not mad about the field goal call because at that point, you just needed points.
Yeah,
And
because ultimately, I'm not too mad at the field goal call either. Because you had zero room for error. You had to score. It was a 2-possession game. You still had to get 2 touchdowns and 2-point conversions. So in a
yeah,
sense, you're like, okay, well, we're not going to score a touchdown here, but guess what? We can get one of these 2-point conversions knocked out.
right.
And so you're like,
And time.
maybe you get a
The time
stop.
the time was the thing. And you're going
I think
against
more
the
so.
what, top 5 red zone defenses in the country on
Yeah,
top of that.
I think more so what I thought after thinking about it almost not even 24 hours, but just having the night and the morning to think about, like, I almost think, we were watching it and, that first drive, they go on that long, long drive. They eat up like almost
The
10
game.
minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you're like, this is exactly what Notre Dame needed to do. They got the ball first, so they didn't take that big swingers punch of Ohio State just going on a 7-0 blitz and
Mm-hmm.
now you're down. They kind of took control early, put Ohio State on their heels a little bit, saying, okay, we're going to do this. But we both said, like, this just can't be sustainable. They're not going to
No.
be able to do this all night. They can wrinkle some of this in, but they're going to have to switch it up. And
Yeah.
it was almost like Ohio State was like, all right, you guys can do this on this first drive, but we're going to shut this down
You imagine
going
the
forward.
hits Riley took. You know how he's feeling
Yeah, yeah.
probably this morning?
No,
He's
trust,
got
I
to be
know.
hurting this morning. He has to be
And
hurting this morning.
like I say, what's crazy about it was literally, so they go on that 10-minute drive,
Mhm.
and then Ohio State just goes 11 plays, 75 yards on their own 6-minute drive, and it's tied up 7-7, and then they
Yeah.
took control in that second quarter and got up 21-7, and so that was where, like I say, you're feeling like, man, this thing could get ugly. Then you had the big Quinshon Judkins run.
Well,
And
they
you're
got
like,
the ball to start the second half. It
is
was
that,
what kind of killed Notre Dame was Ohio State got the ball with like 2 and some change left in the first half to make it 21-7,
right?
knowing that they were going to start the second half with the
Yeah,
ball.
they got that 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah, yeah. So you go up 28-7, and then like you said, after that, they kind of put it in cruise control because I think that game could have got way out of hand if they
Yeah,
really wanted to, because the defense started to settle in a little bit.
Well, the other thing too is I would say this is what I was going to be my criticism. Um, I almost feel like Notre Dame waited too long to start ripping it, because they had some success there,
Yeah,
with hitting
with
Great
Great
House,
House.
and
Yeah.
Riley Leonard was, throwing some balls where
Mm-hmm.
like, damn, that was a pretty good throw. So like
Mm-hmm.
their game plan obviously was going to be what they do. They run the football,
Milk
play
the
that
clock.
kind of control. But Ohio State shut down the run game, the traditional run game. They couldn't do anything on the ground that way. It was just Riley Leonard's legs that was extending drives. But early in that game, when it was like they were putting themselves in those third and longer situations after that first drive, that was where it was like you have to make this 3rd and 8 throw, and then nope, you're off the field. So that was where they built up that lead. So it was almost like after that fake punt, it was like then they just started letting it hang and just they're throwing it around, and they were having some
Yeah.
success. So it's like, man, maybe you guys should have started that sooner. And who knows? But I mean, I guess hindsight's 2020. You're thinking, all right, well, we're going to stick with what we're doing best. Because I mean, for the most part, I mean, Notre Dame did a fairly decent job defensively, but it was just like it was almost like Ohio State was just like basically saying, we're going to take what you're going to give us too.
Well, I
And
mean,
they
and
they
then
were
Will Howard
methodical.
was what, 17 for 17 at
Well,
one point?
well, that, and then I'm telling you, the other big difference in the game, which is we talked about it too with like these NFL quarterbacks and even like a Riley Leonard, Will Howard, the big difference in the game to me was him running.
Well, and
We knew
that's
we knew we knew he could run it from K-State days, but this year that wasn't in the Chip Kelly game plan. It wasn't in the game
they
plan a
saved it.
lot. Yeah, it was almost like they said, you know
Well,
what, we're going to pull this out. I mean, he had like
and
16 rushes.
and that's why I thought him going to Ohio State was an upgrade over Kyle McCord. Like, we knew Kyle McCord could rip it, and they could have probably been in the same situation where they're at now if Kyle McCord was still the quarterback. But when it comes down to it, when you got to do those pulls on the QB running back reads, could he make enough yards? Whereas Notre Dame forgot. It's like they forgot that Will Howard could run the football.
Yeah,
It was on a couple of those pulls where he was just by himself, and he's just like, "I'll take the first down and just go down." Where he had a very efficient game. You
yeah,
could
no,
call him a game manager, I guess, but it was
that's
super efficient, and
that's what you want. Yeah, I don't
he
need him to
did.
make.
And
I don't need, put it this way. I just don't need you to screw up.
right, and then the pass
So
to Jeremiah Smith to end the game was
yeah,
a hell of a throw, hell of a route. You know, I, for a true freshman to go out there and run that route, to push, to stab the DB, to think that he's going to run a post and then to break it back out, to give himself enough space and enough space for Will Howard to keep the ball in bounds on that throw was, hey, that's what you do as championship teams, right?
yeah,
You
no,
make those
like I said,
plays.
he ate that cushion for sure. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, it was too easy. But credit for I was sitting there debating on whether they would even Chip Kelly and those guys would even call that.
Yeah.
It's because it seemed like they were just going to be all right. We'll just
But
run it again and give them
but
the
I
ball.
think I remember I mentioned this when we were watching it. It felt like they were kind of setting up for that by getting in those heavy formations, and then they were like, "All right, third down, we got this
Yeah,
guy out here, and
because he was
they
open
think we're
on.
going to run it,"
Yeah, they were
and
in the
they took the
same
shot.
formation on second
Yeah,
down. Yeah, they could have done it then. Like I say, I think really and truly too, the other thing that kind of kept it from getting blown open was the freaking Emeka fumble. Like that, they were
yeah,
going on a drive to go
yeah. That was
score
big.
again there
That
to
was
make it
big.
38-16 or 38
Mm-hmm.
10. I forget what. So
14. I think it would have been
that was a
14.
hell of a sneaky. I love that play call too, man. It was a great play call.
He made a hell of a play, but the defender just got his hand in there.
Yeah, no. I love the design of that. Like
No, no, no,
basically,
no. I agree. And then him making the extra yardage, but and then trying to get down, but he couldn't get down, and
yeah,
Buddy
that
just
guy,
punched
like I
it
say,
out.
that
Just
the guy
perfect,
made a
perfect timing.
the guy made a great play on the ball for
Yeah, he
sure.
did. Yeah, he did.
I did love the Chip Kelly taking the
Bama.
Alabama orbit
Yeah.
motion, Jeremiah Smith first touchdown.
Well,
That was
on that play, if you're the safety and you screaming, at some point you got to just bail out. I get it. You're not supposed to bail out of the scheme, but I think in that moment, if you knew Jeremiah Smith was there and no one was there, I think the safety should have bailed out and just stayed on him and just say, you know what, he's probably going to get the ball. Let me just stick with him just in case. And if they throw it to someone else and score a touchdown, your DC's just going to be like, Golden would be like, hey, wasn't the right thing, but you did the right thing, and it But in that moment, like you say,
Well,
that orbit
that
route
play
was a
that
hell
play
of a
puts
play.
well, it puts you in a bind because if you're in
Mhm.
man, you're saying, "Hey, he's about to come over." Somebody's got to pick him up and take him. He's coming in motion.
Yeah.
He's alerting somebody.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to take him in man. If he knows he's going in motion, he can't communicate. That what's great about that play is he's going to zip over in motion, and
Yeah.
then it's immediate. Come
Yeah.
back
I'm
out.
sure it was a two-way go. I'm sure it was a
I-
two-way go, but still, you can't let number 4 be wide open by himself, you
no, well,
know?
that's what I'm saying. Like I say, what's hard on it is I can't even remember what Gray did if he just stopped
No,
and just
he went Emeka was on the slot, and when he ran a slant, him and the other corner went in. They both dove in, and then time as he tried to pop back out, Jeremiah was
yeah,
walking in the end zone.
I couldn't remember if he was trying to carry over with the motion or
Yeah,
why he didn't because you don't want to switch in that situation because
you
again,
really don't.
well, you only switch if they do like some sort of like motion where they're gonna like be
Mhm.
stacked or something or just not like it that orbit motion is a fast motion to say
Yeah,
he's coming across,
for sure.
and then it's a quick get back out. And like I said, it's just I loved that play call. What's funny was after the game, I didn't realize that I forgot, and I sent you the clip of that 2000 game when they did it with
Yeah,
Devontae
with
Smith
Devontae.
and Mac. Mac had tweeted out, that play looked familiar, and
Yeah,
I didn't even catch on to what he was even talking about until after I saw it, like a little bit later. I was like,
yeah.
okay, that was the 2000 Bama play that they did against Ohio
I
State.
mean, that's what OCs do, right? They steal
Yeah, you
plays
got to.
from other. I mean, Andy Reid is probably the greatest person at that. Where some games he'll steal, different plays and throw it in the playbook, especially, college plays. I guess he has a team of guys just looking at all the plays that are ran for the weekend and just threw it in there. I mean, even hell, the Jags, 2 years ago, where they put the full house backfield with ETN with the three backs and they ran it out. They copied Penn State when Penn State did it earlier that year. So, OCs, you got to be creative. You got to have little wrinkles that you don't show the whole season or something late you put in there. And like I say, the biggest wrinkle for this game was just Will Howard being able to run the ball a little bit more. Because, like you say, at K-State, he was pretty much the offense. He was the runner. And,
Yeah, no,
they didn't
he
have to
did it
do it
all.
this year.
He did it all for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, that was kind of in my opinion, going into the season, that was going to be an element that I would
Mhm.
figure it would be in the game plan. But again, when you have, the two backs that they have and you have that receiving core and the tight ends, you kind of were like, okay, we don't have to rely on this, kind of like how
No.
K-State was like, hey, we need you to do everything.
Yeah.
And it was, and it was almost when you go back to the season, the overall season of Ohio State, just trying to figure out, get everything, what it needed to look like with all these parts. And, you
Mhm.
go back to where you're like, okay, they were in that shootout game at Oregon, back and forth, and then Will Howard had the little blunder where he slid down and didn't throw it, and ended up losing
Yeah.
that game by 1. Then he had a bad game plan, and a game, he threw interceptions against Michigan. So
Mhm.
it was more
I
so
think
of
I think
just
that's when we keep talking about that game, but I think that's when the switch went on for the team and their physicality even went up even more. Physicality with the players, attention to detail with the players and the coaches went up. The game plan expanded a ton
yeah,
offensively. And like last night, even I thought the defense did a good job with Jim Knowles' defensive scheme, pretty much saying, we're going to rush, but we're not going to overcommit on the rush to give Riley lanes. So that's why you really didn't see a ton of sacks. The only mistake I saw, for the most part, just like you say, thinking back, was when Sawyer and the defensive tackle were trying to do a TE stunt, and the tackle didn't pop out quick enough, and Riley was able to run to the right side and score. But I mean, other than that, I thought the defense played pretty good. I mean, those passes to Greathouse, the touchdown, the kid got a PI and his hand was there. There was really nothing else he could do in that situation. And I thought, like you say, Riley he's good for 5 to 10 good passes a game, and I think he saved his 5 to 10 good passes for the second half. But at that point, it was just kind of too late. You just didn't think they would have enough juice to get up and down the field. That's why I thought about on the field goal, Freeman sitting there like, if if we don't pick up this 9 yards, the game is ultimately over. Okay, if we take the field goal, like you said earlier, you take the 2-point plays out of the situation and you make it a little bit easier on yourself. And the time was the biggest thing. You take the points, get the onside kick or a stop, and then you go from there. Because I mean, hell, they almost had to stop.
Yeah.
Outside of the Jeremiah Smith play, 1-on-1, if you get a stop and you get the ball back, you have opportunity to go down the field and score and tie the football game up.
Yeah, no, like I say, for a moment there. I even said it. I think it was before they missed the field goal. It was on that drive. We're like, man,
Mhm.
they could score right here, and if they got the 2-point play, you're like,
Yeah,
man, could this be like an ultimate like collapse? Like what the like it
yeah,
was like a moment there where we were like, this can't happen, right? This is not going to happen,
yeah.
But it was just like they kind of like messed around there to where it shouldn't have, but it just did. But I guess the other thing too is this was the question I was going to ask you last night, and after I really thought about it, I was like, well, what I was going to say was, what could have made this a better game? Like another team, like opponent wise, who would have gave them a better game? And we even talked about it without me even asking the question. We
Yeah,
said it last night. The quasi national championship game was last week. The Texas game was probably the closest opponent to give Ohio State the most
yeah,
problems, I think.
yeah.
And so my question would have been like, what team could have made this a better game, basically? And I guess it
Even
would have been
even even outside of the top 12.
even because here's what I was really going to say too. This is what's wild. Go back and check this out. I know we've talked about it, but what's crazy is when you look at the final college football playoff rankings. All right, let's take a look. Oregon was number 1. Check, blew them out. They didn't play Georgia.
Oh yeah,
They
oh
beat
yeah,
they beat Texas, number
yeah.
3 in the semifinal. 2 touchdown
They
lead.
had the hardest road for sure.
They beat Penn State in the regular season. Check. They beat Notre Dame for the national title. Check. They were number 6. They blew out Tennessee. Check. They
Hmm.
beat number 8 Indiana. Check. And then basically 9, 10, and 11 were Boise and SMU. They would have beat the hell out of them too. So now
Hmm.
you're getting down to the 11, 12, and 13, 14 teams. That's your Bama's, Arizona State, Miami's, and Ole Miss. Like, so yeah, I'm like, well, no, never mind. Like, nobody would have gave them a better game. The
No,
best team that had the best shot was Texas
yeah,
last week.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
and what's funny is like these are the last several national championship game scores. So you have I can't remember which ones. So this is before the Georgia TCU game, the game before that. 34 to 13, 65 to 7, 33 to 18, 52 to 24, 42-25, and 44 to 16.
yeah,
So eh, the
and
championship games,
that was with the Final Four. Not
yeah.
having
So
the
it's people complaining about these playoffs about there's been blowouts. And then the other week, I read off the blowouts from the other previous years when we had 4, and it's like blowouts are going to happen. It's just how football works sometimes. Like look at the
well,
NFL. Week 1 in the
well,
NFL, there were blowouts
prime example.
outside of
I
the
said it. Yeah, I said it
Tampa game.
yesterday. Here's what it was. I literally was like talking about the last time that Ohio State was in the Mercedes Benz
Hmm.
2022 against Georgia New Year's Eve
Hmm.
night. They battled it out, duked it out. It was a hell of a game. Came down to the final field goal. They
And the field
miss,
goal kid missed the field goal.
and Georgia goes on to beat the shit out of TCU in a blowout
Yeah,
game. That was
yeah,
your national title game. Those were the. It's just the way the bracket fell out. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
That's
Just
it.
kind of like this
it
year. It's like
yeah, it's
Texas was the team. I think the only team in the 12 that would give them a game, because we would have maybe thought it would have been Oregon, but they actually dismantled them.
yeah,
And so then like Notre Dame, okay, Notre Dame gave them a good game too. So, but that was pretty much it. I think we knew Ohio State had the best team in the country this year. It was just a
right.
matter of how they were going to do
Yeah,
it,
it's
and they put it on display in
like
the
you said last
playoffs.
night, it's you look at both teams' path. I think Notre Dame had a pretty fairly easy path. They beat Indiana. Arguably they should have been out. Whatever, they
Right,
beat them,
right.
and then they beat a Georgia team without their quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and then they beat a Penn State whose offense is inept.
Inept. Yeah.
So but sometimes in sports you just get those breaks.
Yeah, no,
You get those breaks. That's
that's
just
what
part
we
of
we
it.
always talk about that in college basketball. And,
Yeah,
when you're trying to get to a Final Four, you're like, man, Does the bracket break your way? Do you get a good matchup? Do you get a favorable game? So
Well,
like,
well,
who cares? You
well,
take
think
it.
about that. The last 2 years, UConn won it. It didn't matter what bracket that you put them in. They averaged what? I think it was
Double
like
digit, double digit
14.
wins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like 14 for 2 years in a row. So sometimes it doesn't matter. Like you say, the only thing is the inexplicable loss at to Michigan at home.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we still don't know what happened that other than they lost, but by far they were the best team in the country. I thought, and they proved it. So
yeah. It was
tip
a
your
crazy
cap.
stat. Go
What's
ahead, go
that?
ahead.
No,
No,
I
I
was
was
going
gonna
to say
say that.
tip your cap to Ohio State.
Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
didn't want
No,
if it was up
no,
to me as a Miami fan, I wanted both teams to lose, but somebody had to
yeah,
win last
no,
night.
for sure. I don't like either one of those two teams either. I was like,
Hmm.
what saying to Ricky the other night. It's like I don't like it. I don't like Michigan. I don't like Ohio State. I don't like Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I respect them and everything. And I have
yeah,
like at least I will say at Ohio State I have two connections there. Of people that I know that are
yeah.
somewhat on the staff. I forgot KP had been up there. Kenny Parker, who went to Florida with me, he's been on the strength staff for several
Yeah, he's
years. He
been
was
there.
at
Yeah, he's been there
he was
for a
at
while
Ohio
now.
State. He was at Ohio State, then he went to Rutgers, then he went back to Ohio State.
Hmm.
But then obviously Pantoni's been the player personnel guy there for a long time. But yeah, I don't root for either of those teams either. I like a lot of those play. I mean, we love Jeremiah Smith. We love, Quinshawn Judkins. Like I love Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs is one of the best players the last several years, but I mean,
Hmm.
I root for him. I like to watch him play, but yeah, it's like I don't want to see them win. Now I heard Coward talking on the way home. There's a shift now. The SEC is done. The dynasty's over. It's just like back to back, Big Ten national titles
I
in
was going to ask you, when's the last time that's happened?
yeah, right. We've
Can
talked about how
do
we
you
talked
know?
about it was probably like 1966 or something.
Uh, Go back a little further, more years.
Fur- Further than that,
Yeah.
yeah, I had no clue then.
Can you guess the
1930,
team?
1932. It's probably
Uh,
like Minnesota and somebody.
it was Minnesota back to back. Minnesota won back to back national champions.
Yeah, see, there you go. So
Long,
that,
long, 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 long
yeah,
time ago. Long
exactly.
time
So
ago.
yeah, so again, there's no shift in that. It's going to be put it this way, it's going to be hard to win the national title.
Well, yeah, because
To run off these
NIL.
games, like to run off these games, like I say, I give them credit. Like they've got, they beat top five teams. Obviously, if you're
Well,
playing teams in the playoff,
but you gotta where you give Ohio State credit is they kind of did what Michigan did last year. Their collective got together and they brought back the JTTs, the Sawyers,
well,
the
that's really
Simons.
okay. That's a great point. Here's what I want to piggyback off of that. This is where what you have to do, in my opinion, if you want to have a championship caliber team, and you talk about, oh, this is the biggest roster that money can buy. What they did is how teams who really want to do it, how they need
You
to
got to
do it.
retain your guys.
Exactly. And then you
Yeah,
sprinkle in a Will Howard and a Quinshawn Judkins and a
three
Caleb Downs.
guys.
Exactly. That's
It's
it.
three: Will Howard,
That's what I'm saying. They
Jeremiah
didn't go out.
Smith, and
They didn't
Caleb.
go out like Florida State and just go like, give me 20 new guys.
Exactly. They
They
really
got
only had
their
three
seniors.
significant guys.
They probably dropped a big bag for Jeremiah to get there, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for
but again,
sure. But
that's where you really pay your NILs, getting the freshmen to get them in there.
yep,
Then you take care of them, you
yep.
talent evaluate them, you develop them, all that stuff, and then you retain
Hmm.
them, you will be good. So
Well, that's where I
that's
think people don't realize, or people don't look at it like that. Like you say, you look at that front seven for Ohio State. Those seven guys have probably been playing together for the last
yeah, well,
4 years.
they said how many starts did they said Denzel Burke had over the last
Like
51
50,
starts? Like,
51,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
So
So
you think
that means
Sawyer and
Jack Sawyer,
JTT have started
exactly,
3 of their 4 years there. So you got to think
exactly,
there goes 40 starts. The D tackles have both been there. The linebackers have both. So you're looking at collectively like couple about 300-400 starts across
yeah,
the board, and then you sprinkle in a Caleb Downs, like you said. So they did what they had to do collectively with the NIL to keep
yeah,
guys, because that's the same thing Michigan did last year, where they kept
right,
all their guys, all their
right,
that most of those guys had been there for years. I
right.
can't think of a significant transfer that Michigan had when they won their national
Yeah,
championship.
they were a heavy senior laden team,
Yep.
and they had some valuable parts that were really good on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
And to me, like you said, that's how you're gonna have to build your team is you're going to have those foundations. And I think that's
That,
what killed Florida State. Florida State had a good
right.
foundation, and they brought in a ton of guys with the Verses and the Fisk, those guys like that. And then you had Jordan Travis there for 2-3 years. I put him part of the foundation because he was there for several years. And
Right.
then all those guys leave, and you don't replenish them in a sense of younger
Well,
guys.
the part I was about to say, the part of the problem with what Florida State in that issue is Norvell has not recruited well,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
a huge thing. So it's like, you know, I look at, Billy's tenure right now, and I'm like, okay, he's kind of doing it that way too. We're not taking a ton. He's very particular with some of the transfers he takes, but he's really like tried to build through recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like, okay, can this pay off to where, yeah, we got to keep like the guys we want to keep. Like, so, the rumors out there that like a Eugene Wilson was thinking about leaving. Well, we were able to keep him. So, so
Yeah.
that's a big thing. We weren't able to do that with ETN last year, so it's like keep the guys that you identify as being studs in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I've always believed that's how NIL should be, is reward the guys who are actually playing football on your team,
Yeah.
and yeah, you're going to lose guys like Princely. He's going to be like, I don't want to go here. Like we suck, and I want more money, and I'm going to go play for the hot team like Ole Miss. So, but guess what? That's where Ole Miss, I know they're projected to be a pretty good team next year, but guess what? They're losing a ton of football players.
Losing a ton of guys. Yeah.
So what are you gonna have to do? You're gonna have to go hit the portal
Mm-hmm.
again. So then you're hoping, like you
hit.
might end up hitting big, but then you might strike out as well.
Yeah. Well, and
And
I
then
think
you're not building that culture and that
and I
foundation.
think that's kind of what Mario's doing too. He's doing a mixture of both.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Everyone just sees the portal guys come in, but they're not looking at the Blunts and the Scotts and on the defensive line. Wesley Besaint is a high school guy. And then on the offense, most of the offensive linemen, Arnez Cooper, Mao Noah, are, high school kids that are coming in, Jordan Lyle, or Mark Fletcher. And then you sprinkle in your Cam Wards and Sam Browns and guys like that.
Right.
But now, this year, he's going for it again. You brought in a Carson Beck. You brought in the whole secondary.
I just heard this earlier with Siski and McCready.
Oh, the number? Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Ooh. I mean, obviously not. Some of it's endorsement stuff that he's got bagged in there, but you're talking about he's going to get $9.5 million for a year. That's why you don't go to the pros. Like,
that's why you don't go to the pros. Exactly.
Yes, you can. We talked about it too as like one of the big key counterparts is you're coming off that injury to kind of show that you can still play, high level quarterback.
But my thing is,
that's pretty damn good. $9.5 million.
That's a lot of money. But I think when
he doesn't even have to play in the NFL, really.
But when Duke went and got Mensa from Tulane, that set the market.
Yeah.
Forward, he's getting $8 million the next 2 years, so he's getting 4 a season. So if you're a Carson Beck or a Quinn Ewers or whoever these transfer top quarterbacks, you're looking at the numbers saying like, well, if he got $4 million, I'm not taking less because I've done way more than this kid, and he hasn't done anything since he's been in college football. So if you're Carson, you're sitting there like, I need a bump, and he got the bump, and and everyone's pissed off about it, mad about it. Once again, until they regulate it, you don't know who's getting paid what, and until they regulate it, get a commissioner, and start to settle these things down, he's not going to be the last person getting that kind of money to go to another team. There's going to be another school next year that's going to probably overpay for someone because they feel like they're right there. I can see Ole Miss overpaying for a quarterback to come in. I think Austin Simmons isn't the guy.
I think they like Austin Simmons, but yeah.
No, I'm just saying. But if this upcoming season and they feel like Austin Simmons isn't the guy and they've reloaded everywhere else, you'll go and get a quarterback.
No, that's what I'm saying.
And what's Ohio State going to do? Are they going to stick with the quarterback they have, the kid, or are they going to go out and buy it? I don't think there's really anybody else out there.
I was about to say that's part of the other issue now.
There's really no one out there, and that's probably why the other reason why Miami probably had to overpay, because there was literally no one else out there at quarterback.
Yeah. Like I say, you might have some spring movement, when that spring window opens, but for the most part, everybody's kind of settled in, and so it's going to be
it's movement. It's just. And sometimes in life, it's just whatever deal you can negotiate.
Yeah.
That's like you leaving your job and going to another job. and you out negotiated them because they're probably in a pinch and say, "Shit, we need this guy. I
Yeah.
guess we're gonna have to overpay." I know those
Oh yeah.
numbers won't be comparative to what Carson's making, but in regular people terms, sometimes companies overpay to get people there, and then they
Yeah, it was
realize like,
just like the new deal today I saw where, Bussin' with the Boys are leaving Barstool. Um, they said that, they got a huge offer and
yeah,
Dave wanted to match and they couldn't come to a close enough number. So they were like,
hmm
they were regrettable, about it, but they were like, hey, we got to take this new opportunity. So it's like,
yeah. Pat McAfee did it. That's why like when people
go
act
where
like
the
it
money
doesn't
goes.
like when people act like it doesn't happen in outside of sports, it's like hilarious to me. Like you find you got to find loopholes. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers have found every loophole in the book to stack that team. And
Yeah.
people are mad and pissed off about them because they figured the loophole out to defer Shohei majority of Shohei's money until 10 years from now. You know what? If you ain't a good front office or a good team, if you're not figuring out ways to work around the system and to get guys in or whatever, you're not doing your job. That's just part of it. That's just part of sports. And people just got to realize that. But I get it. When you're a fan of another team, of course you're going to hate. That's just
Yeah. No, for sure.
reality.
All right, like I say, before we look ahead, maybe to a way too early top 25 for next year, I guess we'll, like you
Look
say,
back on the season.
tip our caps to the. We don't have to look back on
Any
the season.
no,
We'll
I'm
tip
saying
our cap.
any take only takeaways I got from this past season is the service academies, Army, Navy having a great year. Um, the SEC, kind of the top teams, kind of coming back to the pack a little bit.
Yeah,
Still the best conference, I think, top to bottom. But those top teams like the Georgias, the Alabamas, kind of came back to the pack a
yeah, we
little
kind of knew
bit.
that with Saban going out. That was
Yeah,
gonna. We all kind of knew that Bama would
yeah,
probably take a step back, and it has. And what's crazy is you know, I saw something already too. Like they've got the way to top 25, then they've got even the early hot seats for next year. And
yeah.
it's like
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
the boar's not on the hot seat, but he's on like the
The
don't do
warm
that.
Luke.
No, it's like don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but
don't.
the other thing you saw in this playoffs how much the transfer portal and NIL affected teams. I mean, you think about Ewers transfer, Howard transfer, even a Sam Levitt transfer from BYU, Riley Leonard transfer from Duke to. So those trigger men, you see how important having those trigger men are, and why teams are going to pay for them.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what Will Howard got from his NIL, but I mean, you look at all other than who your boy Drew Aller was the only really
yeah,
quarterback that started off with his team and stayed with his team. So
yeah. Because
you
even
see,
Indiana was
yeah, with Rourke,
transfers in from those guys from
yeah.
JMU.
I'm just talking
Obviously,
about the quarterback
yeah,
position.
Boise really doesn't, come
Yeah,
into play. Even Dylan Gabriel transfer, so yeah,
exactly. So
yeah, Nico, I guess would be he's
yeah,
been
the
at
other guy.
Tennessee,
But
but
yeah, that those are a few takeaways I have from the season. Overall, it was a great season. Of course, there's things to complain about. There's tweaking need to be made to the playoffs, but you know what? Whatever.
yeah,
That's just part of sports, man. I'm not even looking at the top 25, but I got one for you. Let me get to it. This is what we're looking at next season. Season openers.
oh
Texas
yeah,
at Ohio State,
hmm
Notre Dame at Miami, LSU at Clemson, Iowa State at Kansas State and Dublin, Alabama FSU, Syracuse and Tennessee in Atlanta, TCU, UNC, Auburn, Baylor, Utah, UCLA, and then in Atlanta, South Carolina VTech. That's how we're going to start next season.
yeah,
How
opening,
do
yeah,
you not like college football?
yeah. No, those are some
Like,
bangers out the gate.
heck yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is gonna what's crazy is the like Notre Dame Miami. It's like, damn, somebody's got a L out the gate, kind of like Florida Miami this year. Somebody was
Yeah.
coming out of that game
Notre
with
Dame
a
minus two and a
loss.
half, the early line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, Ohio State minus 9.5 against or Michigan is a 9.5 point dog. I already got the dog for the big game,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. There's lines
but
out there for everything.
yeah, no. So, well, here's one for you. Going back to our team, where are you putting your money on? You see the Gator wins over under? What do you think? Set it for me, FanDuel.
Probably 8.
Nope.
What do you got? You at 10?
6.5. I'm run.
I'm taking the over. I take
I'm
the
running
over
to the.
right now.
I think I got to put $100 on that just to
I
put
was about to say
$100 on
you
that.
better do it before
Yeah,
that line move. That's gonna move.
yeah, I was like 6.5. I'm like, damn.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
would take
okay,
the over on that one. I
yeah,
thought it would be 8.
yeah. Well,
I mean,
that's the other thing too.
I know it's still a tough schedule. It's almost the same schedule of this previous year,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, it is. But then FanDuel's before I get to FanDuel's Heisman odds already, but
mhm.
let's do who is the prohibitive odds favorite to win it again next year? Who would you say it would be?
National championship?
Yeah,
Probably Ohio State again.
Ohio
They would
State is
probably
5-1.
yeah, probably Ohio State. That's recency bias. A lot's
Yeah.
gonna change between
Oh
now
yeah.
and then.
Yeah.
Like I say,
Like
they're
I
gonna
say,
lose 6 guys on their defense, 6 or
yeah.
7 guys.
Georgia's 6-1. Oregon 6-1. Texas 7-1. Penn State 9-1. That's your top 5 odds to win the national title.
That's just the blue blood.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, does Georgia even have a quarterback coming back? They only have one
Yeah.
quarterback in their quarterback room.
Yeah. No, they got 2.
Mhm.
Dude, I'm telling you, everybody loves this Puglisi kid. Like I
Oh.
like he's the guy to like. I can't wait to watch him in the spring. Put it that way. I'll just put
I
that
put
out
no
there.
stock in freshmen.
I know
I've seen enough freshmen this past season to be like, stop telling me about freshman quarterbacks.
he's been there 2 years, so he's not a true freshman.
No,
So
okay.
he's been on the, like I say, he's been. A lot of people wanted
Yeah,
maybe Puglisi
why didn't he play?
because I think they redshirted him and they were just like, it was like they're going to go with Gunner.
Yeah, okay.
Like but it was like it's almost like they trying to keep him under wraps. But
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but big things. I saw the kid in high school, and then I've heard Georgia insiders like they can't wait to see this kid.
Well,
So again,
also,
it's just like Julian saying at Ohio State. Like,
yeah,
he's gonna be the
also
next best thing. He's Jackson
a lot
Arnold.
of these teams on January 21st will not be the same when we get to August. They're
Yeah,
still
no,
going to be in that post spring window of portal. A lot of guys like, yeah, I thought we were going to be better than what we were looking.
yeah,
You know
no.
what I'm
I
saying?
think
That's just how
yeah,
kids think, or their handlers telling them, hey, go to this school, go to Texas because Arch is there.
mm-hmm.
Who's to say? I think the draft day. I think you can't declare anymore. But still, I can see a lot of guys going to Texas after the next window. You
No,
know,
trust. Like there's probably going to be some movement here now that it's
hmm
all said and done with these games being over.
yeah, yeah.
But again, like I say, I want to see this kid because everybody's talking about him. So that's a name to watch for you that I just told you about. Georgia's freshman quarterback, Ryan Puglisi.
All right,
Puglisi.
we'll
So
see.
you heard that. You heard it here first on the Talking Ball podcast, baby. No, but that's like the Gators are 80-1 on the national
hmm
title odds. All right, who's your FanDuel's leading contender to win the Heisman next year? And I'm surprised there's not even a guy on this list,
Oh,
but I saw him on some other lists.
Nuss.
Nuss
Yeah,
plus
Nussmeier.
900.
Yeah,
And then you got Arch. Arch is the second guy on there. Your favorite quarterback's number 4 on the list. A guy who can't hit a receiver.
Drew.
Yeah. What's wild is this
Hold
is
on.
here
My favorite quarterback. You the
your
one that been
favorite
hyping him up for the
your
last 3
favorite
years.
that's your favorite quarterback now. So what's wild about this list here from FanDuel is uh on this list right here, DJ Lagway is not even on the list.
Yeah, that's wild.
But Julian Sayin is on the list.
If you can get
Lenore Lenore
if
Spellers is on the list.
we're
Dante
it,
Moore is on the list.
but if you could find somewhere to
Well, I saw
get
something.
Charlie
Yeah,
Lagway,
yeah, right. Yeah,
how about you put
give me
50,
the six and a
put
half. Give me the
50
6.5 over on the
exactly.
win,
Yeah,
and
or
then
if you
give me
got
Lagway.
200, why
Yeah,
not? Why not?
yeah,
Because there's no way you can't say DJ Lagway is not going to be in the Heisman race to start the
yeah,
season with the amount of people or amount of like weapons they've brought in. Like
yeah,
now they got to prove themselves,
yeah, yeah. No, for sure.
but at the
Like,
same time, I think what he showed this past season should have been enough to at least get him on the board. If
well,
Julian Sain's
what
on the
I've
board,
seen. That's what I'm saying. I've seen him on some other stuff, so this is just FanDuel's
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I'm sure.
And
Yeah,
somebody could have just created it. Who created this one?
yeah.
And On Three Sports did the thing, so they could have basically just grabbed who they wanted and took FanDuel's numbers and just said, "We will just leave
And
DJ
just
off
added
this
it.
thing."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Off the top of my head, I'm just like, who the hell's Nuss throwing the ball to? Can they get a running game going? That's going to be their biggest issues. Dante
Yeah,
Moore, of course, they're going to have guys coming back at Oregon. A couple of their receivers said they are coming back. Arch, yeah, I mean, you know what Sark likes to do, and the ability for Arch to get, because he has some good wheels. He could get probably what 500-600 yards rushing for the next season. So if
yeah.
he
All right.
goes
Well,
like
that's what I'm saying.
3,500,
Well,
3,500 and
like I
500
say,
passing,
transitioning to that, then that would be like, okay, let's talk about the ESPN's top 25 way
yeah,
too early. It kind of goes according to those odds, except they don't have Georgia too. So they got
yeah.
Ohio State at 1, and obviously key returners are Jeremiah, Carnell Tate, and Caleb Downs. Those are 3 superstars. They're gonna
But
lose a
then they
ton on
say,
that
who's
defense.
to say? The thing is, who's to say those guys stay?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
You
There's been
know, that's
rumors.
the
Carnell Tate's been rumored to maybe being a transfer guy.
yeah. That,
Hell,
that's
like I said to you last night. How many teams are actually not out there trying to call Jeremiah Smith? Like,
exactly.
I
That's
know he just won a natty, but why wouldn't Texas or whoever
hmm
be like, hey, I got $10 million. You want to come play receiver for
yeah.
me?
There's no rules.
So
There's no rules to the game. So until there's rules, you can't blame teams for, I guess they say, tampering or
right,
whatever. But you know, it is what it is until they get rules and regulations. That's what people are going to do. I mean, I told you last night. That's what Dirk Cotter said when he
yeah,
retired as the Boise OC. He said he knows for 100% that Oregon was tampering with Boise State players after Boise
yeah,
lost,
yeah,
saying that they were going to offer them 700 plus dollars to come to Oregon.
yeah,
So if anyone really sits there and thinks their team is not tampering with other players, you're an
mm,
idiot. You're
yeah,
an idiot if you don't think Florida's calling people, Florida State's calling
yeah.
people, Miami's
Why not?
calling people, Bama. They're all calling, even if they're not calling the kids directly, they're calling their handlers, they're calling their high school coaches, they're calling their parents. Hell, they're probably calling their girlfriends.
Yeah,
Who knows who they're calling, but that's just where we're at now. That's just the game.
yeah, yeah. Like I say, no, totally, and that's
And
that.
even if you could prove it,
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if something does happen with some of these Notre Dame and Texas guys and Ohio
yeah,
State guys. Here now that the season's over.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. It'll be very interesting off season now that we're into that
yeah.
carousel of
That's
whatever's
it.
going to happen.
That's why I say it's fun. It's fun to put out the way too early top 25 in the rankings. But like
Well,
I
it's not.
say,
Yeah. Well, that
today it should
yeah.
be post spring.
Yeah,
Post spring
oh,
rankings
well,
should come out.
they do that too.
Yeah,
They're gonna
well,
do that as well.
I know
You gotta have something to talk about the day after the national title. You're
for
like,
sure,
all
for
right, they're
sure.
losing this guy, and this guy. They're returning these
Hmm.
guys, maybe, hopefully. So
Yeah,
yeah, Ohio State's number 1, Texas is 2, Penn State 3, Notre Dame 4, Georgia 5, Oregon 6, Clemson 7, LSU, BYU, and South Carolina are your top 10.
and
And then 11,
the three Florida schools. I think they had
uh,
that. What?
FSU's not in the top 25.
Well, I know that Florida,
Florida
Miami, and were the
Florida's at
twos.
18, and Miami is at 23.
Yeah,
So like French top 25. Like I say, you guys are losing your quarterback in Cam Ward. You're replacing him with Carson Beck. You're losing Restrepo, George, and Horton. You're losing Martinez. You're losing your tight end. You lost Jalen Rivers on your offensive line. Francis Mayoga, Tyler Barron, Barrow, and Misha Powell. So,
hmm
like I say, who you got? Who are your guys' top receivers coming back? I know. Would you get transfer wise? You just picked up.
CJ, CB, CJ Daniels, JoJo
Oh
Trader,
yeah,
Matt
yeah,
Carr. Shamar Kirk left. I saw he signed with Texas State, and they believe they're probably going to get another receiver probably this post spring window. But those are the guys, probably the starters at the moment. They got a
yeah.
lot of talent at wide receiver.
I love JoJo. So
Yeah. So
but yeah,
the thing is experience.
you're losing productivity is what you're
Yep.
losing.
Yep. Exactly. I like the tight. I still like the tight end room with Elijah Lofton, just a Swiss Army knife. And then we got the starting tight end from Tulane. I can't think of his name. And Luke Nichols' brother, another tight end. His older brother, I think, is Jake Nickel.
Yeah.
So they're replenishing guys, but we won't know until week one how they play.
Right. Yeah. Like the big thing for the Gators is in their young, like they were able to retain Eugene, but then they got those 2 5-star kids in Dallas Wilson and Lil Vernell, the junior, the third,
Hmm.
that are hopefully going to come in and be like hopefully instant freshman offense, maybe for DJ. But that the big thing was retain, like, yeah, they lost Pyburn, but in a sense they were like, you know what, we got to pay George Gums and Tyreek Sapp. Those
Yep.
are our edge guys. Those are our
Yeah.
end guys. So
Exactly.
you're a casualty of war, Pyburn. We can't pay all three of you
Yeah.
to play the same position. So
That's just where we're at.
yeah,
It's a numbers game on the
yeah.
field and off the field.
The good part, this was the other thing too. They retained, Slaughter, who was an All-American center. Austin Barber
Hmm.
decided he was coming back, and then you're also obviously with DJ, you got your two best backs. Baugh and Jacoby Jackson are back, so you're like, okay, we can run the ball hopefully, and then, like I say, so we'll see how it's going to look. It's a long way away, but
Yeah.
I do have, like, what's wild to think, circling back to capping off the season is think about like that week going into the Texas game where that was when Scott Strickland dropped it. We're putting our eggs in Billy's basket and we're
Yeah.
going forward with
Yeah.
this. Lagway looked like he was done for the year, and I'm just like, dead in the water. Like, now you have Lagway come back, you win those two big ball games against LSU and Ole Miss. You
Hmm.
beat Florida State at the end of the year. You obviously go to the bowl game. So it was just like a total flip the script, and you're like, hey, there's optimism going forward into the springboard into 2025.
For
So
sure. And then the other team out west,
I got no optimism for you.
I mean, signing Thomas Castellanos is, yeah, you bring in a veteran quarterback, but I mean, he's Kyler Murray part two. So we'll see, how does the
Yeah,
new staff adjust? How does Gus Malzahn work in with the new staff? Herb Hand at offensive line. I think that's their biggest issue. Can Herb Hand turn the offensive line around? Can they make enough plays? And then defensively, can Pot Roast get enough out of those defensive linemen, even though they lost both of their ends with Peyton and what's his name? I can't think of his name. Georgia kid that went to
yeah,
Jones, Marvin Jones the second. He went to Oklahoma. So how does Mike replenish? I mean, it looks like they finished pretty good in in the rankings for high school kids, but the transfer portal. But you've lost so many guys. Like, is there any continuity anywhere on that team? But I expect Florida State to bounce back. Bounce back. When I say that, was that 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins? I'm curious to see how it all works out for them.
yeah. I
But
don't like. I, Castellanos doesn't do anything for me to move the
no,
needle
no,
as a Florida State. He moves the needle as the Boston College quarterback or
yeah.
UCF or what. He's
But like I
not.
say, it all depends on Herb Hand. How does he get that offensive line? If they're able to get their offensive line functional compared to the last couple of years, and they're able to kind of run the football with a Cam Davis, and and they could get those younger receivers and tight ends up to speed. They could be a decent team. I mean, they play in the ACC, so it's not like,
Well, like I said, the problem is they're going to start the season 0-1 for sure. Though they ain't beating Alabama out the gate.
yeah. So it's yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we got to at least talk about Florida State if we're going to talk about the big three,
Oh
right?
yeah, I totally agree. I was trying to pull up
So
Florida
yeah,
State's schedule for next year because I know they, like I said, they open with
yeah,
Bama,
they open it
but
with Bama for sure. I mean, I think the ACC finally released schedules, or like the sequencing of the schedule, the order.
yeah, they got Bama. Then they get two layup games. Their out of conference games are East Texas A&M
Hmm. Yeah, trying to get that
and the
W.
Kent State Golden Flashes. So those are two wins for sure. Then they got the Gators as their other out of conference, and then their in conference schedule. It's not, like I say, it's not up like when they're playing them.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
No, they just have their opponents, but they don't know like what week and all that
Okay.
stuff. So they're playing at Clemson this year, so that'll be a tough game going to Death Valley. They get you guys at home. They get Pitt at home. They get Virginia Tech at home. Like I'm gonna mess with Ricky. Like god dang, how many? They literally only have 3 road ACC games.
I
They
mean,
play.
this guy's always talking about how our team's always you always
That's what I'm
play at
saying.
home,
Like,
and I'm like,
yeah,
you do know how
they,
home and away schedules work, right?
I know, right? There's usually 50-50, but anyways, they play Miami, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, all at home. Then they play their road games are at Clemson, at Carter Finley, at Stanford, at Virginia. So yeah, just looking off sheer numbers of this,
Yes.
guesstimating, they get the 2 wins against East Texas, A&M, and Kent State. That's
Wake
2.
and Wake.
I'll give them Wake. That's like 3 for sure locks. After that, they're going to be in bangers in my
Can we give them
like,
Stanford?
yeah, we'll give them a road game at Stanford. They should be able to beat Virginia,
Virginia's
but I
tough.
think, I think I'll give them Virginia. But the games they're going to have to bang with is Bama, Florida, Clemson, Miami, Pitt, Virginia Tech.
So they got to figure out 3
and
wins
State.
out of the other 5. So we're giving them 5. They got to figure out 1 to get bowl eligible, and then 7, 8 might be realistic around there for them to have a good season.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
No, it is tough.
Yeah,
with all the
because here's the bottom line. I got 4 losses off rip: Bama, Florida, Clemson, Miami. Like, I don't think you're going to beat those teams. And then the games where you're on par with the teams that are kind of like up and coming are your Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC States of the world.
Yeah, and guess what? You can't fire him because you still got 8 more years.
Yep.
Sure. I mean, you can fire him, but I don't think you want to pay all that money, so you can't really fire him.
Yeah.
Man, might be a tough couple of years for Florida State, but like I say, with the NIL and transfer era of college football, who's to say they might be able to sway some kids to come post spring?
Yeah, I mean that's they're basically gonna have to try to bank on that. Getting some late additions or some whatever. I don't know. All right, I guess before we get out of here, who you got in this Final 4 of our
man?
last?
I have no idea. Your Lions, man. You don't want to talk about your Lions?
I knew not to like root for them or be happy for them.
As soon as you start coming around and rooting for them, they'll let you down.
Don't buy any paraphernalia or any Barry Sanders jerseys or anything. So yeah, that was again. We talked about it in all the sports. You can't turn the freaking ball over.
You cannot turn. I mean,
they had 5. Here's what's wild: 5 turnovers, and they were it still scored 30-something points.
Well, three of the 4 games had turnovers. Baltimore turned the ball over. Who's the other team? I think Houston turned it over a couple times.
Yeah,
and then the Eagles game was just
that was a bad fumble by Kyron Williams.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he had 3 turnovers. He had 3 fumbles himself. So, like you say, it doesn't matter how good you are, you can't turn the football over, because if I just showed you Josh Allen's stats, you'd probably be like, man, they lost that game.
Yeah, we're kind of ass, but he did what he needed. Like, game
turn the
manage
ball over.
Be smart,
Yeah. Everybody wants to blame Mark Andrews for you could blame him, but he wasn't the reason why they lost. Like, he had a drop. He had 2 drops and a fumble. Lamar had a fumble and a pick. They had a couple penalties. We're talking what, 10 to 17 points just off of 3 turnovers right there.
Yeah, what's funny is I saw Chris Sims. He was saying that that basically he felt like Lamar needed to make a better throw on that 2-point play, and like it was almost like he said he. And when you watch it, it's like I don't disagree with it. He almost like double clutched it, almost like to make it perfect. That took an extra second, for Andrews to continue to kind of flow out of bounds.
You're catching a brick.
It's a slick brick. And
you're trying to stay in bounds. You're trying to catch it and make sure you stay in bounds.
right, and not to try to put blame on Lamar. Like
No, no,
Mark
no, no,
Andrews,
no,
like
no.
we always say, catch the
No, you
ball
got to
if it hits
catch
you
the
in the hands.
ball. But yeah,
But
but
you could have
I
maybe made it a little easier on him.
but like I was telling you guys in our group chat, I just feel like every time the Ravens hit the playoffs, it just doesn't feel they turn it up a notch. It just feels like they're playing regular season ball while everybody else has turned it up. Like the Rams the first week of the playoffs when they played Minnesota, you felt like they turned it up.
Yeah, you got to
And
ratchet. You got to
you
ratchet
got
it up for sure.
Even Houston on Saturday,
Oh,
they felt
yeah,
like they turned it up
well,
against the Chiefs.
they definitely ratcheted up against
Mm-hmm.
the Chargers. So and they did look. Houston did look fairly well.
Yeah,
Early in that ball
they
game,
had
but
opportunities, but we knew they weren't going to beat the Chiefs
yeah,
and the refs. But that's here nor there. But yeah, in football, if you turn the ball over, it doesn't matter how good you are. And that Detroit Washington game, when you're playing against a high-powered offense like Washington, and you just keep giving them opportunities, they're going to score. And kudos to Dan Quinn to be like, hey man, we're going to put the nail in these boys right now.
yeah,
A lot of coaches would have went ultra conservative up 10 and said we're going to kick the field goal, and they went for it on those 2 4th downs on that one drive. And Dan Quinn's like, no, we're going for it. We got this
yeah,
special talent at quarterback who we know. What was the DB thinking on that 4th and 2? He was like froze. He
yeah,
was stuck. and,
yeah,
and JD just went around the corner and picked up the first down. So it's it's interesting. But this upcoming weekend, I like to go to the Super Bowl. I think I told you last night. I like the Bills beating the Chiefs, and it's hard for me not to say the Eagles. So I
yeah.
could see Bills Eagles.
I'm with you. I think the Bills do slay the Mahomes Dragon. I know, like we've talked about Kansas City, not overly like they just win
They
games, just
just
how they
find
do
ways
it,
to win. Yeah,
and they're a tough out no matter what, even going to Arrowhead and all that stuff. But I don't
can't
know. I
turn the
just feel
ball
like
over, Josh.
I feel like, and I think he's gonna play smart football.
Yeah,
They beat him. They beat him in the regular season. Obviously, that doesn't matter because hell, the Ravens beat the Bills 35-10 in the regular season.
yep.
So, can Buffalo's defense get after Mahomes a little bit? And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a banger, and it's gonna be one of those tight ball games. But I just like the Bills to win that game for some reason. I think
Same.
I think they slay the Dragon. And as far as the other game goes, I'm going with the damn hot shot Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins. Like Jaden Daniels is balling out of his mind. He has
Yeah,
no
he's not playing
idea.
like a rookie.
No, not at all. And I think the reason why is yes, Saquon Barkley is you're not stopping him. He's going to get what he's going to get. I just feel like there's something not right with that passing game with Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts and those receivers. And
I think a lot of it is without seeing the all 22. From the little bit I've seen, it's just they're not getting separation, man. They're
no,
just
they're not.
at
They're
least
not.
enough separation to make him comfortable. Like probably a legit quarterback like a Mahomes or an Allen who could fit it in there, it probably can work. But for Jalen Hurts, I don't think he's comfortable enough to put the ball up there, and they're not getting enough separation for him.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you got Washington's got to feel like, hey, they're playing with house money. They're on
Mm-hmm.
fire. They got to be feeling
Yeah.
really good of winning those 2 games. At
Now,
Tampa Bay, who was a tough out, and then beating the number 1 team in the league in the Lions and just really
yeah.
putting it on them.
Hey,
And then on top of that, you're playing against a division rival in a sense that you play twice a year, and you beat them once, and then you played.
They better figure out how to block that monster.
Yeah,
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter has been
Dude,
pretty
those last 3
ridiculous.
plays of that game the other day, I mean, he won that football game.
Yeah, no, he's
He just, God, to be that talented at that size and that fast at that size is amazing. He is amazing. As long as he keeps his head on straight and he comes the ball, he's unblockable.
Yeah, no, he's a
Unblockable.
beast. He's a
It
damn
just
beast
sucks
for sure.
losing the Kobe Dean behind him. But I mean, it's the playoffs. Everybody has injuries. Everyone has significant injuries.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, college football, Dunzo.
Done, man.
We'll get back on here and rap maybe about the Super Bowl or something, and then maybe talk
Yeah.
some if there's some transfer portal news or coaching carousel news, if any one of these coaches decide to leave for the
It's
NFL
over.
or go somewhere else, or I don't think we're gonna have a Nick Saban retirement moment here.
What are we gonna
So
do on Saturday mornings with no game day?
I know it's gonna be tough, but
And
like
I
I
know
say,
you got your Gator basketball team.
yeah, they're playing pretty good right now. So we'll
Yeah.
see what they can do. Maybe make a run here for March, but SEC is actually pretty loaded in basketball right now. So we'll see who sinks or swims. I know that what's crazy about the imbalanced schedule of that too is they got to play. Like I think they play Auburn twice this year, but then they don't play.
I was about to ask,
You
is
know,
Broom back? What's his situation?
Janai Broom is not back in the lineup yet. He's coming back. I don't think he's going to be
Yeah.
out for.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it was an ankle.
Got you.
But they've been able to win without him. Because they're good. They're good. So
Yeah.
like I say, Alabama and Auburn are really good. Obviously,
I
Duke's
mean,
really
he's
good.
pretty much consensus player of the year,
Yeah, well, no, for
for
sure,
the most
for
part.
sure. No, like I say, he's a good player for sure. Like, um, uh, the ebbs and flows of winning on the road and winning at home and all that is college basketball. It is what it is. So we'll see what happens. But like I say, I like the Gators to make a Sweet 16 run, and if they get the right breaks, I can see them getting to the Final Four. Who knows? But it's going to come down to those matchups and like who you're
Mhm.
playing, and like if a bracket gets busted that they're in, where
For sure.
say they're a 2 seed and then they're in the same bracket with Duke or something, and Duke loses, like, hey, Cooper Flag, baby. But
Peace.
yeah, he's
Next
good. He's
number
good.
one pick,
Yep, for sure.
2025 number one pick. Going where? I don't know.
All right, dog. Well,
All
let's
right,
put a
man.
bow on it. Let's put a bow on it. Wrap it up. Appreciate all the
Thank
lovers,
you everyone
listeners,
for the
likers,
season. It's been fun.
subscribers. We're gonna hopefully we'll add some elements maybe to continue this college football talking shop with the homies. But other than that, we appreciate y'all and we'll holler at you. Go Gators, go Canes. Ricky says go Knowles.